Hello and welcome in to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Minutecast. Thank you so much for joining me today. This podcast is available on all the major platforms. So when you're using your podcatcher of choice, make sure and hit the follow or subscribe button. That way you will know when the new podcasts are available. Well, I got to say, this is the off season and this is kind of a tougher time to cover a team. There's not a whole lot of activity, mostly just the rumor mill going around right now. Who is going to be the next quarterback of your Tampa Bay Buccaneers? I've heard Deshaun Watson. I have heard Murray. There's a long list of different players that are quarterbacks for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then further from that is the free agents that need to get signed. What's going to happen with Leonard Fournette? It's really hard to know. But in this podcast, we are going to cover a couple of those topics. Another topic at hand is Tom Brady and his relationship with Bruce Arians. As it's swirling around there, that their relationship wasn't that great. Just reading here on Bleacher Report that, it seemed on the surface that Tom Brady and Bruce Arians had a close relationship. In all actuality, it doesn't appear that that's the case. I know that this is the rumor mill, and that's how things get started, because anytime you have the greatest quarterback of all time and you have one of the greatest coaches of all time, that makes for juicy gossip, doesn't it? That Tom Brady and Bruce Arians did not have a good relationship. So on the Bleacher Report, it writes, future Hall of Fame quarterback Tom Brady reportedly had some issues with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers before announcing his retirement earlier this month. There were things about the Bucs program that frustrated Brady. Despite that, he led the Bucs to a Super Bowl win to close out the 2020 season and the NFC South title in 2021 before they fell to the eventual Super Bowl champion Los Angeles Rams in the divisional round. So I don't know if there's a lot of fire with that smoke, but according to that article, it seems like there is a bit of a riff between Tom Brady and Bruce Arians. And it's been talked about, and I think that to a certain extent, it's clickbait. You know, what a great story. Is that really why Tom Brady left the Bucs? Was because of a bad relationship with Bruce Arians? I don't know. I kind of tend to think that that is not the case. I think that, I think he made his mind up earlier in the season that this was going to be his last season. I think that maybe if they had won the Super Bowl, that may have changed his mind. But I think ultimately he just made his mind up earlier in the season. His wife and his kids had talked about that, they would like to see dad home a lot more. And his wife had said that she would like, more time to do things that she liked doing. So I don't think that it's primarily because of a rift between Bruce Arians and Tom Brady. I guess I wasn't there. I don't really know what happened. Later in the article, it says the honeymoon was over between Brady and Arians in Tampa Bay, and Brady retired because his relationship with Arians was souring. Added that Brady and the Bucs offensive coordinator Byron Leftwich would work on game plans while Arians was rehabbing his Achilles injury, only for Arians to show up and make changes. That reportedly made Brady and Leftwich feel undermined. And I mean, that's one of the things that I had noticed about Tom Brady is I think to a certain extent he's like, hey, I'm the greatest of all time. I've won 7 Super Bowls. I don't need anyone to tell me how to do things. I think to a certain extent he respected Bruce Arians. But in another way, I think that he felt like he knew how to make the right call. Or the plays that he came up with Leftwich, that was good enough. But I mean, ultimately, the responsibility of the rise and fall of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers lied squarely on Bruce Arians' shoulder. And I know that Tom Brady is the quarterback of the team, but I mean, ultimately, he could leave the team and he could ride out of town knowing that he helped that team that was pretty undesirable beforehand win a Super Bowl. So I don't think that there should be any rift going on between Tom Brady and Bruce Arians, but that appears to be the case in this article. Like I say, I think to a certain extent that it might be a bit of clickbait. I guess time will tell. So some potential landing spots for Tom Brady are the 49ers. That's the big one that's gaining traction out there, that he wants to go out west. Earlier in the season, people had talked about that maybe he wanted to go back to the New England Patriots for one more year, but I don't think that's the case. I mean, I even speculated as much earlier in the season in this podcast that maybe Tom Brady wanted one last hurrah in New England. I just don't think that's the case. I think that they're established, and as long as the coaching structure continues to be the same in New England, I don't see that happening. So it's a bit of an odd thing to say, and I think another clickbait article, and this all stems from Tom Brady's own podcast, when they asked him, would you consider returning to the NFL? And he said, never say never. Never say never. I just think that, doesn't that make Tom Brady look pretty indecisive? Why did you, in fact, go ahead and retire if you're going to come back in 6 months? That's like he said. He goes, I would consider coming back in 6 months. Now, 6 months from the time he made that statement is roughly the time the training camp starts. Isn't that interesting? Not that Tom Brady really goes to training camp anyway. At this point, I mean, I don't think there's anything that he can really learn. I think that he does a lot of extensive training in his own time, but I just think that the timing is interesting, and I think that to a certain extent, I think that that is a way to keep people interested in the Tom Brady brand. I know that when you leave the limelight, how are you going to maintain and keep relevant in today's society? I mean, Tom Brady is a household name right now, but years from now, will he be? Will that Brady brand that he has, will that continue to thrive even after he's gone? There are some prototypes out there that show, yes, it could. I mean, case in point, Michael Jordan's shoes, Nike Air, still sell very well, and he has been considered the greatest of all time in the NBA. So if that is any indicator, I guess you could say that it is possible that that his brand could continue. But again, back to my main point, I think that it's just a way to keep him relevant, keep him in conversation. And what a sort of salacious and scandalous thing to say that I would consider coming back. If it, to me, it makes him sound very indecisive. I'm retiring and then coming back 6 months later. Again, I hate to keep pointing to the Jordan references here. I mean, if you remember Michael Jordan's history, he retired, he came back and played for the Wizards, if memory serves, and then he came back and played baseball for the White Sox. I think, I've never been a professional athlete, of course, but I think that if you're asking me, I think what he should do is just stay retired. I mean, that indecisive, I'm retiring one moment, then I'm playing live again the next moment. I just think that sends the wrong message. I mean, ultimately, I guess it's up to him. I mean, at this point, do you think that Tom Brady really needs any more money? No. And I don't think it's about money for Tom Brady. I really, really don't. At this point in his career, I think it's more about achieving. I think that he really wanted to get that last Super Bowl. And it's unfortunate, everything that transpired there between him and Antonio Brown and everything, and just the continual injuries that plagued that Tampa Bay Buccaneers team this last season. In the running back position alone, Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette, and how they were still able to rise above. I know that they got eliminated in the first round of the playoffs, but still, to this day, hats off to these guys for playing as well as they did. I think a team that didn't have as much fortitude or substance may have folded sooner than they did, but they didn't, and that's what it's all about. Now, in the next part here, we got to talk about where are the Bucs going to be next year? What players are they going to have next year? That's a question. There are many free agents on this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team, and what are they going to look like? Most notably is Tom Brady, of course. Where is he going to end up? Is he going to continue to be retired? I mean, he actually has 1 year left on his deal with the Bucs. Would he return to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? I know that I've read articles by Rick Stroud, and he thought that it's possible. I don't know. I just don't really see that being the case. I think that if Tom Brady did in fact come back, that it would not be with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I mean, I guess time will tell on that. But and then just in some other news here with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Mike Evans was on a podcast and he was talking about Antonio Brown and why he ended up leaving the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and or left in the middle of the game against the Jets, if you guys remember that. A real crazy moment. I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like that in my years of watching the football games. Is that he wanted The Rock, is what Mike Evans says. He wanted The Rock. And he called him Big Brother because him and Mike Evans had a close relationship. They were both wide receivers and playing at elite levels. And they had a personal relationship outside of just being two teammates. And he pleaded with Antonio Brown to come back. And then he said that he got called back into the game. And then when they went into the break there, he saw the footage of him taking his pads off and doing jumping jacks and everything in the end zone there. But it just kind of makes you wonder what could have been with the Buccaneers if Antonio Brown had been there, if Leonard Fournette had been in there, if Ronald Jones had been in there, if Chris Godwin had been in there. The list is endless. If Rob Gronkowski didn't miss those games. Would we be talking about the Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers? That's a question that I don't think will ever be answered, but I mean, it can't be answered, but it makes you ponder the question of where would the Buccaneers be if all those things hadn't gone wrong. It also makes you think about things that need to change in the game. Chris Godwin, if you remember when he got injured, they took him out at his knees. And if you ask any wide receiver or any guy that's running with a football, don't hurt my knees. A lot of them have said, you can hit me in the helmet if you're going to hit me somewhere, but don't hit me in my knees. And if you remember that play, it was very apparent that he was injured. And that's something that's going to have to be looked at in this offseason is that not just only helmet on helmet contact, but helmet on knee contact. Because Chris Godwin was just playing very well up until that point, and then he came along and took him out at his knees. And like I say, it just makes you ponder what could have been. So like I say, there's a lot of talk out there about who do they want to replace Tom Brady, and Russell Wilson, Watson, Murray, or Trask. I'd rather be bad than mediocre with Jimmy G. Wentz, Winston, Bridgewater, etc. I see a posting here on Twitter. And Russell Wilson seems to be a tough one. That seems to be the one that has the most rumors surrounding it. I would hate to see that trade that involved Wilson coming to the Bucs. How many players would the Buccaneers have to give up to get Russell Wilson? And when they were talking to Jason Light, I saw in an interview, and I've seen different articles, and there's a lot of stuff going on with the Bucs, but that they're kind of in a win now mode, and that they would be willing to give up draft picks to get a big name like Russell Wilson. I think that you can pretty much cross Rodgers off the list. Rumor has it there that if he's next year, if he's playing, he's going to be playing with the Broncos. I don't know if there's any smoke to that fire, but that's what they're talking about there. And then in another article, I heard that the teams shouldn't look over Carson Wentz either, that he had a rough season last year with the Colts, but you can't really blame him for that. It's just like a goalie in hockey. The quarterback is always the one that takes the fall if a team doesn't do well, but what was the defense like around Wentz on the Colts? I don't really know. I'm not a big Colts fan, but there's, pretty much every name out there in the quarterback position is linked with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because, Tom Brady is gone and it's a big hole to fill. And, they're looking for a big name to fill those shoes. And, if you're asking me, I think that Russell Wilson would do a fine job with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but again, like I say, I would be worried about what they would have to give up to get him. So the next guy on the list, too, is Watson. he's another one. He has that legal issues, and how many games would he have to miss before he would be able to be a Buccaneer? I don't know. There's just a lot of things swirling out there. Trask, who was a top draft pick for the Buccaneers, is he who they're looking for? I think that they need to develop him. I think that he was redshirted last year, so the Buccaneers really don't know what they have in the tank with Trask. But I think he played well when he was in college. But that's the thing. When you got someone like Brady starting games for you, you don't get a lot of opportunities to play. And I think that maybe they should have tried to work him in. I know that they had Gabbert in his backup and then Griffin in there as well. So he was pretty far down the list there before he would actually get any playing time. But before I put all my eggs in the Trask basket, I would say I want to see what they have in him first. This is a team that is still a contender, and I don't think they're in desperation mode. A team that's desperate is the one that ends up putting their draft pick quarterback in there who has no NFL playing experience or little playing experience. You've seen that with different results. You've seen that in San Diego. You've seen it, I think, even in Kansas City, that happened too. But I don't know. It's just a different situation with Trask. I mean, he's a good quarterback, but is he a starting quarterback in the NFL? Questions abound there. And then some of them, I mean, I think you're getting to be ridiculous. Jameis Winston back to the Buccaneers. Man, I don't know. It's like I've said in another podcast, that's kind of like going back to an old girlfriend, isn't it? I mean, you already know what you have in Jameis Winston. Now, given Jameis Winston really upped his game when he was when he played the Saints. If you remember that Halloween game before he got injured, that did not look like the Jameis Winston that played on the Bucs. So I think that the time that he played in the Saints organization really did help him out. And I think that his future is bright wherever it may be. That's another team that's in transition right now is the Saints. They lost their head coach, and they don't really have a starting quarterback. So the NFC South looks a little bit undecided at this moment. I think that there's going to be cards that are falling here. And I think that, once the Saints, they've named their head coach and they announce their starting quarterback, and the Bucs, when they announce their starting quarterback, you're going to be able to see a little bit more clearly of how those teams are going to fare. What is the NFC South going to look like? Those are all big questions out there. So Leonard Fournette, another one. I mean, I would say that he's the biggest one other than Gronkowski. Fournette has never been to a Pro Bowl and might not be considered a truly elite running back. However, he's an extremely effective dual threat who was instrumental in helping Tampa win the Super Bowl just over a year ago. And if you remember Playoff Lenny, he's a guy that has an extra gear when it comes time for the playoffs. Because if you remember Fournette, it was Fournette and Ronald Jones who were positioning to be the number one running back for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And for a line share of the season, it appeared to be that it was Ronald Jones. And then Ronald Jones got injured and Leonard Fournette came in, and the rest is history. I mean, like I say, the guy's got another gear when it comes time for the playoffs, and he really showed that. So Fournette and Godwin and Gronkowski, I'm kind of resigned to the fact that he's not going to be playing with the Bucs next year. I'm not saying that he's going to be done in the NFL, but I think, like I said before, that Gronkowski and Brady were boys. They were brothers. And where he goes, the other one will go. So I think that ultimately that Gronkowski, if he plays somewhere, it's not going to be with the Bucs. And if he doesn't play, he very well may retire. I mean, I don't think he has anything left to prove either. He has multiple Super Bowls. He had retired before Brady came to the Bucs, and Brady kind of beckoned him to come back, and he did. And I'm thankful he did. I like Gronkowski. I mean, he's a great heart and soul player. He's big. He can run. He's lumbering. But I don't know. I mean, what do you guys think? Leave me a comment on Twitter or Facebook. Do you honestly see Rob Gronkowski coming back to the Bucs at this point? I don't know. I think it's a long shot. If I was going to sign two players that are free agents on the team for the Bucs, if you were asking me right now, I would say Fournette and Godwin. Is that achievable? I don't know. I think that Godwin is going to ask for the king's ransom, and he's going to get it. And the fact that he almost kind of seems resigned to the fact of leaving the Buccaneers. Never wants to disrespect the team that he played for. But when you listen to him, he said, I would consider coming back to the Bucs, but I want to test out the open market. That doesn't sound like a real good sign that he's going to be coming back to the Buccaneers, if you ask me. So, like I say, I guess time will tell with that one. But, man, Fournette and Godwin, those would be two big holes in the lineup to fill. So, you got in the running back position, you got Keyshawn Vaughn. And what's happening with Giovanni Bernard? I think that, if you're going to prioritize things, I think that if you can't lock up Fournette, then you got to find a way to keep Giovanni Bernard. Or get someone on that's the same caliber as Leonard Fournette. I know they have Ronald Jones and they have Keyshawn Vaughn. But what did this last season show you? This last season showed that you need depth in that position. It was a next man up mentality all season, and thank God they have that next man up. A lot of teams don't have that depth. You take a look and you knock out their number one running back or their number two, it's curtains for that team. It's done, especially the running back position. So, there was a lot of moves that Jason Light made in the offseason. You looked at, you're like, who? Why are you picking up this guy? Think of all the players that Light picked up this last season. Brashard Perriman and Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell is a guy that didn't get a lot of playing time, but he got some reps in with the Bucs when he needed them. But another depth guy, finding a diamond in the rough. Cyril Grayson, a track star for the most part. I know that he had a history, I think, with the Seahawks and stuff. But, before he played with the Bucs, talk to your friends about Cyril Grayson and see if they can, give you any history on him. I think that only an extreme NFL nerd would be able to tell you anything about Cyril Grayson. Not anymore. He stepped up and played really well with the Bucs. That's another guy. I'm not sure. I don't have his status or his contract status in front of me, but I would re-up Cyril Grayson. Those wheels? Are you kidding me? Before Cyril Grayson, Tom Brady always said that Scotty Miller was the fastest guy on the team. I don't know. Are you going to find a guy faster than Cyril Grayson, a track star at LSU? I don't think so. So it's just, like I say, it's going to be an interesting season next year. This is the off season. And that's what we do in the off season is we talk about players that are free agents and who's available, More on this Wentz thing. They're saying despite Wentz's awful finish to the 2021 season, he had a decent year throwing for 3,563 yards, 27 touchdowns. That's good for being the 10th most league-wide, and 7 interceptions with a 62.4% completion rate. He tied 9th in QBR with 54.7. Taking a closer look at the Colts offense, Wentz posted solid passing numbers with just one reliable pass catcher and Michael Pittman Jr., who registered 88 receptions for 1,082 yards and 6 touchdowns. Aside from the second-year wideout, no other player on the roster topped 40 receptions or 384 receiving yards. So, again, it's Wentz had a decent year. Is that a guy that they're going to have come to the Bucs? Is Wentz going to be that big name that is going to give you that faith that, yes, this Buccaneers team is loaded and we're going to make a run for the playoffs? It doesn't evoke that feeling in me, I got to say. The only guy that would do that would be like a Russell Wilson or Murray, something like that. A lot of these guys, like Teddy Bridgewater, I'm sorry, I'm going to have a hard time getting excited if they sign Teddy Bridgewater. Nothing against Teddy Bridgewater. He's an okay quarterback, but that's about it. So, all right, that is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Minutecast for today. This is the off season. And you got to dig a little bit deep for these stories now that they're not playing every Sunday. What are we going to do? There's not going to be any football till next fall. We got the OTAs and mini camps and stuff going on in the summer, but hopefully everyone out there is a big fan of the NHL. I was going to say Major League Baseball, but who knows when that's coming back. So a lot of uncertainty there. That's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Minutecast for today. We'll talk to you guys again next time. Thank you for listening.